Now, Humza Yousaf faces a vote of no confidence in the Scottish Parliament, called by the Scottish Conservatives, who are the main opposition party there at the moment. It's likely to happen as early as next week. And looking at the numbers, the SNP has 63 MSPs, while together the opposition parties have 65. It is looking like a nail-biter. If Humza Yousaf loses, we could yet see an early election in Scotland. And in the last hour, the Greens have announced they will also vote against the First Minister. So all eyes turn to the Alba Party, whose one MSP could well decide the fate of Mr Yousaf, and I'm therefore very pleased to say the former SNP First Minister and now the leader of the Alba Party, Alex Salmond, is with me. Alex, is Humza Yousaf, in your view, going to make it through this?
Well, he certainly painted himself into a very tight corner, and his tactics today have almost been kamikaze. I mean, extraordinary. But, we'll see if he's got the political skill to get himself out of it over the next few days. Regan will give him the opportunity by asking him to commit himself to independence, to stop encountering legislation which jeopardises the rights of women and girls, and to reintroduce some basic level of competence into his administration. But how he replies to Regan's letter will determine his fate.
It's a slightly strange request to ask him to say he can stay on as First Minister if he becomes competent.
Well, I mean, he's losing two fundamentally incompetent ministers in Patrick Harvey and Lorna Slater. I mean, their track record has been absolutely appalling. But you can't blame all of the ills and drift in the administration on the two Green ministers. So Humza Yousaf has to stop introducing legislation which divides Scotland, which is hugely contentious. I mean, the latest example is to abolish juries in certain trials, for example. I mean, he's not going to get through the Parliament, and start rededicating himself to the cause of independence and the issues which really matter to people, which is the state of the Scottish economy, the health service, the education system. Now, the Scottish Parliament, not that long ago, had a reputation as being the most competent administration in these islands. It's lost that reputation, and now it has to regain it.
To what extent do you think that the Butte House agreement with the Greens drove the SNP in a more sort of further left, more woke position, which is just not what the Scottish electorate wanted?
Well, certainly a further woke position would be fair, but I mean, further left, I mean, we'd dispute what left and right means. But, I mean, look, take the Butte House agreement. Line 1 is the pursuit of independence. Well, they haven't done that. I think paragraph 2 is the pursuit of climate change targets. They haven't done that either. And instead, they've been up the highways and byways of identity politics and cultural wars, which is not what most people in Scotland want to see, and not what they expect from the Scottish National Party, or for that matter from the Green Party. When I did a deal with the Green Party in 2007, I had in Robin Harper a genuine Green politician who was interested in green issues, not interested in woke issues.
OK, so cut to the chase. Is the Alba Party MSP Regan going to support Humza Yousaf when it comes to that vote of confidence next week?
Well, luckily for Scotland, we have in Regan not just a very competent politician, but an adult human female, let's put it that way. She will write a letter to Humza over the next day or two, which will set out her concerns, and on the basis of his reply, she'll decide how to vote. So if Humza discovers the political
as far as he's concerned, his career is still hanging by that thread until she decides what to do.
Well, it depends on his reply to her letter. I mean, look, is this a difficult thing to do? Well, I mean, is it really difficult to ask the Scottish National Party, to rededicate itself to the cause of Scottish independence? That shouldn't be an impossible ask.
No, indeed. But if it goes the other way and he loses this vote next week, I think under the rules there are 28 days to find a new First Minister, and that requires the SNP finding a new First Minister who all wings of the SNP can rally behind. That's going to be quite an ask too, isn't it?
Well, that's a matter for the SNP, but that's certainly the rules. They have 28 days. If Humza Yousaf loses the confidence of the Parliament, if he can't command a majority, then the SNP, as the largest party, basically have 28 days to come up with somebody who can. Now, that shouldn't be beyond the bounds of possibility. After all, they've got 63 MSPs to choose from. But you're quite right. I mean, some people think that who's acceptable to one branch of the SNP won't be acceptable to another, and so on and so forth. But that's not the concern of Alba. The concern of Alba is to get the Scottish Parliament back on the road towards Scottish independence, stop introducing legislation that alienates women and girls across Scotland by jeopardising their rights, and above all, to get the Parliament back to dealing with the issues that matter to the people of Scotland and restore that hard-won reputation for competence that's been jeopardised and sacrificed in recent months.
And if the SNP lose the vote and then they can't find somebody in 28 days, Scotland heads to an early election.
Well, that's always a possibility. So, Humza's career is hanging by a thread. If he doesn't want to be remembered as Humza the Brief, then he better get his special advisors down to drafting a suitable and convincing reply to the contents of Ash Regan's letter. It's possible he'll rediscover some political skill and perhaps he can get himself out the tight corner. But, as you know, Andrew, I like an occasional flutter on the horses. But if Humza was a horse, then I wouldn't be backing him.
Now, the SNP has a pretty effective leader here in Westminster at the moment in Stephen Flynn, and it has been suggested that he has been pivotal in all of this.
Well, whoever pushed Humza to do what he did this morning could not have had Humza Yousaf's best interests at heart. If he wanted to get out of the Green Deal, let's call it that, the Butte House Agreement, then what he should have done was left it to the SNP membership. But the Greens couldn't have complained, having put it to their membership, if the SNP did the same thing. But by issuing this ultimatum, sacking the two Green ministers this morning, and then talking about every other opposition party in the most derogatory terms. There's do's and don'ts of running a minority administration. And one of the don'ts is you don't insult every opposition party who have a majority collectively at the same time.
Are you implying in all of that, Alex Salmond, that Stephen Flynn doesn't have Humza Yousaf's best interests possibly at heart?
Well, I've got no inside knowledge as to who advised Humza to hold his press conference this morning and to summon these two Green ministers and sack them. I think they should have been sacked, incidentally. But, sometimes in politics, it's not just what you do, it's the way you do it that matters. There was a way to do what Humza did this morning and not leave the bruised feelings and blood on the carpet all over the place. Running a minority administration, which I did for 4 years with 47 MPs, requires a different mindset. You can't act as if you've got a majority when you're in a minority. You have to be able to appeal to someone to keep yourself in office.
It's all just about bad politics, isn't it, really? Doing politics badly.
Today is one of the worst political performances by a First Minister that I can remember. I don't think I've seen a less adroit performance. Listen, you get advisors saying, be tough, be strong, be decisive, all this sort of stuff. At the end of the day, they're not behind the eight ball, and Humza is, and he's the man who has to command a majority in the Parliament, or he goes down.